Today is the day to wake, work, and win. Welcome to the Standard. Sitting here looking at your ankles, man. They're pretty swollen. It's like you got some congestive heart failure or something. What's going on?
They were actually a whole lot worse.
Oh, you did 100 miles. Boo-hoo.
That was crazy, man. It was absolutely bonkers, the whole experience.
Okay, 50-mile ruck race, which is 20 pounds of non-consumables the whole time, right? Versus
Those packs are like 30 pounds.
Yeah, because you're carrying all your food and stuff.
Yeah.
So versus 100 miles of kind of running and hiking, and in the end, you're just limping. But what's harder? Which one?
Oh, I mean, the 100's way harder.
Okay, all right. I didn't know, man.
But it brings you to the same place a lot. Like, it brings you to that dark spot. One's just 30 hours long, and the other one's
it was like 17,
a little bit less.
17.
How
does it feel when the guy who wins the race?
Oh.
We did the math.
Okay.
So you would have passed him at your 38-mile mark or whatever, around the 35 to 40 mark. You would have been going out. He was coming back.
I saw him.
Oh.
Yeah, I saw him. Let me start. I want to start out just from Jump Street and get to that point, because I think if you fast forward to that, you don't appreciate how you feel when you see the winner coming down and you haven't even really started the hardest part. Like, you haven't gotten to the hardest part yet. And what that feels like.
All right.
So we get up to Leadville the day before the race, Friday, and we get checked into our Airbnb and just start getting our packs ready and stuff. And myself and my buddy Ross, who's been on the show, we were running, and you were one of my pacers. And so his pacers start showing up, and we're all kind of jaw-jacking and like firemen do. And we had a big pasta dinner. My wife made her sauce and meatballs, and it was going pretty perfect. Got a great night's sleep and woke up at 2 a.m. And my plan was I've had the same nutrition since I started training. It was a cup of coffee, an English muffin with some almond butter. That's it. Like, that's all I will eat in the mornings. So I have that, I stretch, and I've been dealing with tendonitis in my hamstring for the last month and a half. So I'm just terrified that this thing's going to blow up on me early. But I have a great stretch, and the weather was calling for 40 degrees and rainy, which is perfect.
No.
It is.
For you, it's perfect.
Perfect weather. So honestly, everything is going exactly how I want it to. So we start, and we're a mile and a half from the start. And so we end up driving a little bit closer and walking in probably 6 or 7 blocks. And I'm walking with my whole crew. So, and Ross is walking with his whole crew. So we have 15 people walking down the middle of the street. We all have our headlamps on, and we felt like a gang, getting ready to get after. It was a cool vibe. So you get into the starting corral, and there's 750 some odd people in the corral, and we're all the way in the back. It's exactly where I wanted to be. Because with Ironman, you just kind of let everybody find their own, pace, and then you don't get caught up in the scrum and then get pushed to run faster than you're supposed to. And I'd say for the first 13 miles, it was like you were flying. I couldn't feel my legs. I was just I
mean, that's a half marathon that you felt really good. That's pretty damn good right there.
I mean, nutrition was great. I was trying to get 400 calories an hour. That's kind of was the goal. And I did that, no problem. Water was going down good. I was using Element in one of my flasks, and then a product called Tailwind, which is like calories and some other electrolytes and stuff. And yeah, I mean, we ran through until it got light, and that got us to our first aid station. And I like breezed into the aid station, like, hey, I don't really need anything, but you know. And when you come into an aid station, they have like food and drinks and stuff, but normally you'll go straight to your crew, and then your crew will swap you out with whatever you need. So refilling water bottles, and you basically hand them your pack.
Meanwhile, the winter is just
So
yeah. Here, hand me a cup of water on my way again.
maybe,
Yeah,
I mean, honestly, that
it's just impressive.
I had like a 6-person crew,
I know,
and then
I thought about
and
that
then
too.
2 pacers, and the leaders or the people who win this thing, like maybe their wife's out there like handing them a sandwich, or their husband's handing them a sandwich, maybe. Otherwise, they're just like cruising, but they're averaging like 200 miles a week training. Is that insane? It's bonkers.
I can't even imagine. Yeah.
So,
Cool. I mean, I can appreciate it. I mean,
hey,
like
they're
totally.
they're pros.
Yeah.
So we get through that aid station, and then the climbing starts, and this has somewhere like 15-ish thousand feet of climbing, and so we got through our first kind of big climb called Power Line, and came back down into the next aid station called Outward Bound, and this is at like mile 20.
It'd be like 22, 23.
Yeah, something like that. So we roll into there, and I'm still great spirits, feeling awesome. I got a little hot spot on my foot that we address, and usually spending somewhere between 3 to 5 minutes at each aid station. We're trying to motor, because you know, and when you find out how close I was to not finishing, if you spend an extra minute in, you know, each aid station, that could add up, and you could not finish. So after we left that aid station, my stomach started to go. And usually people lose their stomach at around 60 miles. Like they just have a hard time eating just because your body's just like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But mine started at like mile 30. So from mile 30 to mile like 35, just imagine like the worst cramping and nausea you can imagine, but you know you need to keep eating because you have, you know, 20 some odd hours left of racing.
You ever get to a point in the race? I know there was some like dark spots you were in, right? Do you ever get to a point where you're like, I can't quit because this would be like 6 months of time wasted?
Well, here's where we're at. So I get into, and it's to give you some reference. It took me 45 minutes, and I'm still running at this point. 45 minutes to eat a bar, like a nutrition bar. Like I would take a bite, I would stop running, and I'd like half swallow, half choke it down, and then keep moving. One thing I could always do was just keep pushing the salt. Like that's huge for cramping. It's huge for your stomach. But I was able to keep that stuff down. So I get into Twin Lakes Aid Station, which is right before you climb Hope's Pass, which is like 13,000 feet for all intents and purposes. And so you have to climb up it, then the backside, and then you hit 50 miles. Then you have to do the whole thing again. So I'm about to embark on 8 hours of suck. And I roll into the aid station, and I just start bawling because I'm like, my race is over. Like I haven't even gotten to the hard part yet because I can't eat. I feel terrible, and just like super sorry for myself. You know, like all I've put my family through, and I've drug out a whole crew, and my pacers are coming out.
You voluntold 2 of your friends to pace you?
I did voluntold you guys. It was legitimately at work. I said, "Hey, I'm gonna need you guys. You guys can split it up how you want, but."
Oh, you're pacing me. What?
Yeah. So this is when your crew really like comes in. So I sit down, head in my hands, and I'm just like I can't. I'm like, this is over. And so they're swapping out my pack, and I can't eat at this point. And my wife, gives me a hug and says, "You got to go. Like, you got to get out of here." And I stand up and I start to like shuffle out of there. And probably took me another like 2 miles until I got to the base of Hope's Pass to like feel like I'm I feel like I'm making the right choice to keep going. So I start to hike up Hope's Pass, and I'm like, oh man, like this is what I'm good at. Like I'm good at put your head down and like power up stuff, stairs, whatever it is. And I start passing people. And I'm like, all right, just starting to get my confidence up a little bit. I still can't eat. I was taking like ginger chews and some anti-nausea stuff. And I just power up to the top. And I'm like, I know they'll have soup at the top. And it's cool. You're at the top of this, it's basically the saddle in between two like 14ers. And that fucking sucked. That's just it. They have probably like 10 or 15 llamas or alpacas. I don't really know the difference.
Man, how are you getting all that stuff up there?
Huge tents, like big pots of soup, stuff for fires.
That's what you pay for right there.
Dude, that's a fact. I guess it's a family from Texas, I think, who comes out every year and like puts on this Hopeless is what they call it, Hopeless Aid Station.
Hopeless Aid
Station. And it's amazing, man. So I get to the top and I have some soup and I'm like, all right, I just got to get down. And the 50-mile turn is down at the bottom. So as I am about to come over the top, I see this dude in a windbreaker, no pack, no like, I don't see any water bottles on him, and he is bombing down the hill. So I like slowly shuffle over to the side, and I see his bib had like 1 or 2 on it or something like that. And I'm like, oh man, that's the winner. Like that's the leader right there. And I am, I've barely made it over the first time. And he looks at me and he says, keep it up. And I'm like, you're about to win the Leadville 100. You're crushing it. And you're taking the time to like say something encouraging to all these people, hundreds of people that you're about to pass. It was really cool. And I don't think you'll see that in a lot of other sports. So you get to the top, it's absolutely gorgeous. And then you start the run down. And the run down was pretty brutal because it's really steep on that backside. And so when you finally get to the bottom, you're like, oh man, I should be at that 50-mile mark, but you still have another 3 miles to run.
Gross.
Yeah, gross is right.
Gosh. Yeah.
So my body's starting to feel it. And I had left Ross at the bottom of Hope just because, he's super fast on the flats. But on the climbing, I can get him. And we had talked earlier, like, hey, we want to run this thing together, but at some point we're probably going to have to split ways. And we were okay with that. But I was feeling so guilty because that whole time my stomach was bad, he was trying to help me out and basically carried me that whole way, being like, hey, let's just run to that tree. Let's just run for a little bit longer. And then when he was struggling, I left. And so I was having like this horrific guilt that he wasn't going to finish. It was going to be my fault. So I get to the 50-mile mark and I had an hour to spare before the cutoff time. And I'm changing my socks and doing all this and he's still not coming. So now there's like 45 minutes left before this aid station closes. And when the aid station closes, that's it. They don't let you back on the course. They don't let you finish.
How can they tell you? I mean, I get it. They wouldn't let you finish, but I mean, at that point, can you be like, yeah, I'm out of the race. Here's my bib, but I'm going to stay on this course. Like, I'm on my own.
I would imagine if you you could run away from, they're not going to like chase you down, but they'll probably be like, you'll never race Leadville again if you.
We won't let you?
Yeah. Like, we'll take your bib, and if you keep going. That would be my assumption. Because they don't want you to get hurt, or because like you're on top of Hope or in the middle of Hope and you get hurt or you can't go on anymore, they got to send a rescue crew to get you. And that's not an easy
Okay.
recovery. So it makes sense. And they want you to finish. There was so the lead man is like a distinction you get when you do the Leadville 100 run, the Leadville 100 bike. There's a 10K the day after the Leadville 100 bike, and then I think the Leadville marathon. If you do all those in a year, have a lead man status.
Are the 100 bike and 100 run, they're different courses?
Different courses.
All right.
Yeah,
I was thinking, man, if it's the same course, I don't know.
Oh,
yeah.
I mean, that was super technical. That if you were biking that'd be crazy.
Could you would Powerline and Hope's Pass be the one parts that would be like, okay, it'd be hard on a bike?
I don't think you could bike up Hope. I mean, I'm sure someone can.
Yeah. All right.
But man, that would be interesting. So one of the Leadman candidates was inside the 50-mile aid station when I was in there, and he's like, "I'm done." And the people,
he's running the race.
He's running the race.
Yeah, all right.
And he's like, "No." This aid station worker was like, "No, you're not. You need to get the fuck out of here. Like, you're not getting on that shuttle. You need to just leave right now. Like, we're not giving you any more food. You just got to go." And so, like, they want you to be successful. They don't want to see you quit.
I would imagine they've seen it many times before, right? I mean, you expect people to quit.
So
They're pretty good at seeing, is this guy just broke mentally or is he broke physically? It's like, oh, we see mentally broken all the time. Like, what people need is just stop sitting around and start moving.
They need a kick in the ass. So the lady who makes all the cutoff times, called the Cutoff Queen, and she tells a story about how her husband was running Leadville, gets to one of the aid stations, and she's crewing him, and he's like, "I want to call it." And she gets her kids in the car and locks the doors. And he's like, "You're done. Like, you got to keep going. You're not getting in this car. You spent the last 6 months training for this, and you brought us out here. We've been out here all day. You're gonna finish."
Yeah, I'm not gonna listen to you for the next
yeah, exactly.
Can't wait to do it again.
Totally right.
Yeah.
So I end up leaving the 50-mile aid station, and I'm like, man, there's a chance I might be able to pull this off. Like, I basically ate broth from mile 33 to the finish. I think I had a banana with you at some point, but that was about it. And so I got some more broth, and I start cruising back, and I see Ross coming in, and he's probably got like a half hour to spare. And I'm like, dude, you got to get the fuck out of there. Like, you don't have time to mess around. And he looked like hammered dog shit. And that was the last time I saw him until the end of the race. Because I'm like, I don't know, there's no way he's going to finish. So I started to get some gnarly blisters on my hands too from the poles that I was using. And in the middle of the woods, like it was a mirage, this dude had like a tarp laid out with like salts and stuff for blister care and like all this other sorts of shit. And I pull over and I'm like, "Hey man, do you have anything for these blisters?" And he like wrapped my hand. I mean, it was just like it was like sent from fucking heaven. And so I get to the bottom of Hope's Pass and I'm like, I got to get up and over this thing. And if I can do that before dark, like I can do this. So, I would say that going up that backside was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. Because not only did like you just have to do it, but I had to motor up and over. And that was like a dig deep bank moment.
Do you think you could have finished this race? Like, how much did pacers help you?
Oh,
meaning, these guys are winning races. They don't have pacers, so that's
some
what
of them do.
About. They still do?
For sure.
Okay. But is it a mental push that helps? Is it just having company that's the biggest part of it? Because when I paced you for part of it, it's not like I was really like pacing you a time. We were just moving. Like that's what it ended up being. It was just like we're just gonna move. I mean, I remember we were doing 30-second runs, minute walks, and then I don't think you were paying attention to your clock because I was like, I would do like 40-second runs.
Oh, I was very aware.
Oh, okay.
But
Yeah,
I was like,
I was told it was totally on purpose. I'm like, well, we need to gain time, and so it's like if I do 5 seconds here and 5 seconds less rest, then I mean every second matters, you know.
and it'll come to the point where I think if you and Eric didn't pace me, I wouldn't have finished on time.
Okay.
So I get down to the base like right at dark, and a lot of people didn't bring their headlamps because they thought they would have been down in time. And so there's these two people that are like have their cell phones out trying to find the trail.
Ooh, man.
Yeah, right. So I pull up behind them. I'm like, hey, you guys run in front of me. I'll turn this thing on the brightest setting, and because we have like a couple of river
Cool, yeah.
crossings
Yeah.
to do. So we ran in together, and I call my crew, and I'm like, hey, this is what I need. I'm coming in. And when I got into that aid station, the one that I left 8 hours previous thinking I was going to quit, I was like, I'm going to get this motherfucker. And that's where I picked you up.
Mm-hmm.
So I sit down, and your shoes are soaked because you go through the river a couple times. And I change my shoes.
When you say go through the river, I mean, you can't cross it with a couple hops?
No, it's there's like a rope that you hold on to.
And the water's deep.
Knee deep.
No
water.
shit.
Yeah. So when you leave, you have to go through that. Some people take their shoes off, but like
I think I would.
I don't think it's worth it. That's just my.
I think I for sure.
As a man who has blisters are all over his
have
feet.
Wet socks and feet.
Yeah.
That may have contributed to your.
It certainly didn't help.
Yeah.
It certainly didn't help. So I do a full change and eat some more soup, and then you and I leave, and that is like a huge boost of morale. Huge boost, because you don't feel like you're doing this alone anymore. You know, you carried some of my stuff for me. Like that was a huge boost for sure. What was your?
What was my experience?
Yeah, like how was your like?
Well,
what were you thinking?
Considering, I mean, from my point of view, right? Let's go back to when I was voluntold. Voluntold to pace you. I'm like, okay, how long? All right, yeah. Well, I've done half marathons. I've done Olympic tries and stuff like that. I personally, and we've done that 50-mile ruck.
Right.
Personally, don't have a desire to run a marathon. Like, I just not that my gait and I think my height. It can mess up your back and your joints over the years.
Yeah.
All right, whatever. I guess 20 miles. Yeah. And then a couple months ago, I tear my meniscus. So there was no training at all. But one thing about this tear, and then so now we're 6 to 8 weeks past the tear, and I'm able to move linearly, right? It's the sprinting and maybe more athletic moves that I'm planting and moving where it's like, ooh, that's bad. But the whole time most of the time that I'm walking with you, my knee's clicking.
Yeah.
I'm just like, thankfully it didn't get much worse. But we started out like on that uphill out of Twin Lakes, and I'm like, oh, here we go. Because I'm a show and go type of guy anymore,
Right.
If I feel like any prep I do an hour before, like stretching, immediately it's just like, well, I'm sore, like everything just hurts. I don't know.
And it's not an easy first.
No, and it honestly is probably good because it gets the heart rate going, loosens up. But it was like, oh, here we go, and we're at 10 to 11,000.
Yeah, you go from a town called Twin Lakes, and you go straight up for 2 miles.
Yeah. So for about the first half mile, it was like don't know, had this picture of this donkey going uphill with these wide eyes, like, what the fuck did I get myself into? And then everything opened up, and lungs open up, legs start feeling good, and yeah, it was fine. I tried to talk to you as much as I could because I figured the conversation would make you forget about the distance. And you just like, oh, next thing you know, that's a mile.
I just figured
mile.
We had a lot of business to talk about.
Well, we were talking business for sure, but yeah,
It's interesting that that was your read, and it was what I wanted at the time. And then when I pick up Eric later, that is exactly what I do not want. So it's interesting, like what you need to get you through.
Yeah, I've been on hard physical things like that, and there's times when I don't want to fucking talk to anybody anymore. I just don't talk to me, don't do nothing, just leave me alone, leave me in my space. I just need to do this. I'm wasting energy,
Yeah.
So I get that too.
Yeah, I mean, we kept a pretty good pace, I think, for the majority of the time, and my stomach was still jacked. And then that after our aid station that I went through with you, is when the dry heaving started to pick up. And
you mean the half pipe?
Yeah,
that was funny because we were in the aid station. We stopped in, and I was like, "Oh shit! There's this, and I'm still eating and drinking.
I mean, there's
and
there's
I look back, and you're
and,
gone.
Yes, cookies and chips and
I was gonna get you out of there.
Yeah,
and I knew you had kind of walked out, and I'm still eating. I'm just doing my thing, and then I kind of peek out the tent, and I mean, you're at least 100 yards up, going away. I'm like, oh shit, I better chill. Here I am, just eating.
I had to get the fuck out of there, man.
Yeah, no, it was funny.
So we get to a certain point when we get back on the road, and I haven't been on the road for 40, 50 miles at this point, and that's when the wheels just came off energy-wise and pain-wise. Things started to hurt a lot more, and the blisters on my feet were getting pretty bad. So our 30-second run, or 40 or 50, or however long you deemed, that was over. And now it's starting to get kind of cold because you're not moving as fast.
Not for me.
You were ready to go, man. Were you wearing fire gloves?
Yeah.
You dork.
Yeah. Well,
You have the weakest.
My feet and hands freeze and makes life miserable in the winter.
It's because you're a Great Dane, man. It's hard for your blood to get out there.
And so yeah, it was fire gloves with a couple layers here and there, but I was perfect.
Yeah, I was getting kind of chilly, but we finally get back to Outward Bound, which is what would that be? 60 something?
No, 60 Outward Bound is going to be 77 miles in.
All right, so we get in there, and I'm still feeling really confident. My spirits are still good, and I sit down, and my feet are real bad. So they try their best. My crew is fucking awesome. Try their best to get my feet where they need to be, and there's some chafing that has come to fruition that has started to become a problem as well. And I pick up my other pacer, and as we start to head out, I'm still feeling like I got this. And we start to kind of power hike, and I kind of tell him hey man, I'm done running. I can probably, we got to keep 20-minute miles. That's the goal. And we have a huge climb coming up called Powerline. And it's a 2-track 4-service road with 8 false summits. So you'll think you're getting up, and it'll kind of level out, and it just keeps going up and up and up. And I start to see this souped up Suburban cruising around, camera crews and stuff like that. And there was a couple quote unquote celebrity runners out there, and these guys, I thought I had a big crew. These guys had like 5-6 person camera teams, like running around all over the place. And it was interesting because I was like, I feel pressure on me, and the BPN, the Bear Performance guys, they flew a whole crew from Austin out there to videotape this dude. So I can't imagine what kind of pressure he has. So we start cruising up Powerline, and it is just like zapping my soul. Like any ounce of me feeling like I was going to actually get this thing done started to go away. And Eric did a fantastic job of pushing me past where I thought, like, I was like, man, I gotta slow it. He's like, you got 100 more yards. Just give me 100 more yards. And we did that. And every time you think you were getting to the top, you look up and see headlamps at a higher elevation than you. And you're like, fuck me, man. I got to keep going. So we keep going. And at the very top is this unofficial aid station called Space Station. And it's just a bunch of hippies getting hammered and passing out booze and drugs if you want it. It's a wild place to walk into. And they had a few other things that luckily had some broth and some Coke, which really helps. Yes, Coca-Cola.
Oh, okay.
They probably had the other stuff too.
I'm sure they did.
But yeah, like you'll walk in and they'll be like, all right, what can we get you? You need some water? We got some whiskey, tequila, need a little, like anything. I don't know who in their right mind would partake in that, but we cruised through there, and now you're kind of on this plateau. And now it's starting to become pretty evident that my knees and ankles are like every step I'm feeling it, especially on the descents. So we get kind of off this really rocky road and get onto a nice kind of gravelly 2-track. And now I'm motoring again. I'm feeling a little bit better. Still not running, but I'm having no problem with like 16-minute miles. And then we get, and we're not really talking at all at this point. I basically said, Eric, you need to walk how fast I need to walk. I will follow you. Like that was pretty much all that was said. So we get to a short little section of the Colorado Trail. It's pretty technical, single track, and it is a mud pit. It must have rained earlier that day. And so my poles are getting stuck. I'm having to like pull them up with every step, and I'm sliding all over the place. And a ton of descents. And the bottoms of my feet, I have some toenails that are definitely coming off, but just like, I'd say a 7 out of 10 on the misery scale. And I just want to get on to like some sort of dry, non-slippery surface. And that probably took us like 45 minutes of that, of just like real miserable. So we get finally to the very last aid station, and I don't have that much time to spare. So the way we're on track now, you have until 10 o'clock to finish this race. And I'm thinking that if I hustle, I can make it with like 30 minutes to spare, which is not a lot of time. That's one,
1 minute an hour.
Yeah.
So if you're 1 minute an hour slower, you ain't making it.
Yeah. So like
we were talking about some previous years when some guys in your crew had witnessed, people missing it by 30 seconds to a minute, and they, sorry, no buckle for you. And okay, that's a second an hour. If you want 1 second faster an hour, they would have made it, or 2 seconds,
That is nauseating,
yeah,
dude.
Right?
But it's a really tight time frame. And as we start cruising, to get up and out of my seat at those aid stations, I had to have my crew chief, who has been on the show, and he's damn near 7 foot tall, and he had to pick me up and put me down on the seat each time. And so I'm barely holding on to 20-minute miles. Like that's how much pain I'm in. And then every descent, it goes from like a 7 out of 10 to like a 9.5
Yeah.
pain wise. And it's still dark. And all I want is the sun to come up because at least I can get this fucking headlamp off my head that I've had on there for, how many hours. And the warmth of the sun, it just kind of like rejuvenates you a little bit. And I start getting passed by like people running, looking great, feeling good, having good conversations, and you really start to second guess yourself. Like there's if these guys are this way now and I feel like this, how am I going to be in 10 miles cuz I had 13 more miles to go. And now like every pebble on the road feels like a personal insult to me. I know that's not true, but like that's what it feels like. And and Eric just keeps keeping pace and pushing and trying to be like, hey, you need to eat something. And I'm like, oh, dude, it's just not going to happen. Every time I try and eat something, I feel like I'm going to throw up. So we get to probably like 5 miles out. When do we pick you up again? 4 miles out?
Yeah, like 95 to 96 miles.
Okay, so this was like right before we picked you up. There's this 150-yard scree with like a really loose rock, super steep. And I stood at the top of that thing and I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to get down. Like, I think I might have to scoot on my butt to get down this thing. My feet and my hips and knees were hurting so bad. And I just went step by step. And every step I took was the worst moment of my life. So I finally get down, and dude, I just wanted to break down. I just wanted to just be like, dude, I've given it all.
You got to right after that. You got to me. So Eric and I walked with you a little, and I remember meeting up with you, and literally 20 feet after I met up with you, you go and you like it's almost like you tore something in your foot or your knee or something, and it turned out to be a blister. But you're like, I don't know what's the problem. I can't feel my foot. Something's bad, and I'm like, maybe I need to get the fuck out of here. Like, this ain't good. You just like literally just showed up, and then like 20 steps in.
I remember that, and I will remember that. It's like I got shot.
Yeah,
that's how bad it hurt. And then every time, because my blister like ripped open, and then every time that like new skin hit like a rock, it was just like this mind-numbing pain into your guts. And so I was just like, what else do I have to fucking deal with? And as I start to make it that last 3 miles, I realize why it felt so good in the morning is because it's all fucking downhill in the morning.
Slight downhill, right? With the exception of that.
Yeah. My coach calls it douche grade because you can run it, but it sucks.
Yeah.
So,
douche grade.
Yeah. So we climb up for a few miles and we get to the final mile, and you can pick up your whole crew at that point, which is amazing. And so I pick up my wife and my brother and sister-in-law and Ben and Jess, and you guys were there, and it's just like you are going into battle this last mile with like your whole crew. And I remember you asked me at some point, like, hey, do you want me to put some music on? I didn't listen to anything the entire race.
Your quote was, actually, I think you said music's for pussies.
Correct.
Yes.
Here's my thought on that. You were like, hey, I'm going to throw some Shania Twain on. And I'm like,
well, that was a joke.
But like, she doesn't deserve to be here. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, what's wrong with Shania?
She doesn't deserve it. She does not earn the right to be in my head right now.
I was going to play that Don't Impress Me Much.
Oh, well, the way I was walking did not impress anybody.
Exactly.
Oh, man. But it was this weird feeling of you have a mile to go, and then this thing's over. This experience is over. This thing that you've been thinking about nonstop for 6 months, been training for, been putting people out for, like, it's gone. You'll never have this again. So don't cloud your mind with things that are going to distract you from what you're going through. It was like a forced mindfulness to be like, this is all you got. This glory that you're going to have is fucking gone.
Well, what if it was
in a
Eye of the
mile.
Tiger? Would you have said yes?
It might even be worse.
Okay.
You know, get like fake, like, let's go.
You come running in right before the finish. You're
Oh,
like,
man.
I'm killing it.
So it's like 9:00 maybe when I start my first or my last mile. So I know I'm going to finish, but it's slow going. My buddy Ben goes, "You have to run through that chute to the finish." I'm like, "Dude, there's no way. There's no way." So I'm like, "Let me try." And we're like, I don't know, 500 yards from the chute, and I try and take a couple steps, and like there's no way. So I get to the end of the chute, and your crew peels off, and it's just you, and you have the race director, and then you have the husband and wife team that started the Leadville 100.
Okay, let's go. Tell me more about that.
So
How long has this been around?
1983. So Leadville is a mining town. Super hard people. It's a hard place to live. It's still a hard place to live. It's at 10,000 feet. It's pretty far away from everything. It's kind of isolated. It's really exposed, and it's a hard place to live in general. And then the mine closed. So Ken and Mary Lee were like, we got to figure out a way to get people to come to Leadville because they believed in the town so much. And they're like, let's just start a race, start 100-mile race. It's interesting. I mean, like, they're like local celebrities in that town and definitely during the race. So to be able to finish and be able, they hand you your buckle is pretty cool. So I get to the last bit of the chute and everyone's going bonkers because it's the end of the race. Like, the people, when that finish line starts to close, and if you ever have a chance to get to either a ultra or an Ironman finish at the very end, the last hour, you will see the most incredible sights, the most amount of grit you can imagine. You'll see at those moments. So people are cheering, and I'm like, I don't know where this came from, but I start to. It felt like I was sprinting, but I looked at the video, and it's like this pathetic, pathetic jog. But somehow, you find this extra gear that you didn't have, and you cross the finish line, and it's incredible. And the rest of the day is horrifically painful. But yeah, it's such a crazy thing to do, man.
It's cool.
And
You gonna do it again?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I won't say never, but I think I did it.
Sweet, man.
Yeah.
Well, I'm waiting to get you back. I'm trying to think of something crazy I can do and just be like, hey, by the way, I'll see you on Monday because you're helping me do this.
I'm in, man.
Maybe it'll be like, maybe I'll make you re-roof my house and be like, oh, hey, man, we're tearing the shingles off. It's like 95 degrees out. See you there.
I mean, I've done trees. What's
That's
a roof,
true. Yeah, that's true. I guess I owed you then.
Yeah, I want to pay somebody, and I want to crew somebody. I want to experience those other pieces of that.
Yeah, that's
I think
cool.
It'd be pretty rad.
Yeah.
But yeah, by far the hardest, most intense thing I've ever done. Julian Serrano, he was on our show. I saw him on the trail a couple times, and he finished. Total monster. So congratulations to him and everybody else who finished. And yeah, happy it's over.
Sweet, man. Well, you can thank your wife for all the good food and cookies because when Eric and I got up to the Airbnb, I think that's all we did was eat. We were the exact opposite of you. We just ate.
That is not what I did. I got back to the Airbnb, took the most painful shower I've ever taken, and then crawled into bed for 2 hours. And And then when I got up, I had some Giordano's pizza. Or sorry, Lou Malnati's. Yeah,
Good.
it's damn good.